Welcome again to this edition of Searching Your Heart. And today I'll be continuing from where I stopped, talking about the end time events. Okay, and focused last time on the book of Revelations, some of the prophecies in the book of Revelations talking about the 666. And how we can relate it to current events. And of course, this is not an easy topic to talk about. And of course, over the years, leaders of the church have tended to have this me against them or us against them mentality. While saying, okay, we are the ones preaching the genuine gospel, and the other one is the one preaching the wrong thing. And it's always been like that. Of course, there are one or two proclaimed atheists on YouTube that have tended to even bring more light into some of these issues, as in the American context. You know, that this has been created over the centuries where certain denominations, have this, the we against them mentality has become so intense that, they even chase people out of their own churches, and within themselves they have this kind of, thing, I'm going to get his name, this guy that left Christianity and became an atheist. He talks a lot about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which of course I disagree with his point of view, but he makes that valid point, that this we against them thing is so strong with it, and that is why he left Christianity. Discovering that that uniqueness is no longer there. And I thought so, and I said, look, it would happen that way because of that very fact, okay? When you build everything you are based on the fact that you are only unique, there's a big hole there, because creation will not support you. Creation does not support that, okay? And it's, of course, the same thing that happened in the WCG, or the Worldwide Church of God, and that is why the leadership under Descartes had to, downplay the whole thing and make so many changes. Because the very concept of exclusivism does not hold, okay? It does not hold when you look at it from the biblical perspective, okay? The very plan of salvation is aimed to remove that concept of exclusivism, okay? So when you build your whole church based on that, of course, it will break down. And unfortunately, that is where the 666 will also plant a foot in the church. Okay, the Antichrist, as it were, will plant a foot in the church using that very concept of exclusivism. Unfortunately. Now, I am not saying that one person cannot be right and the other person wrong. It's a different thing to say that. Okay, and it's another thing to build an exclusivist mentality from the wrong principles. Okay, some people build that exclusivist mentality from race and tribe, and this is what has marked human history and the history of the church. Race and tribe tend to govern the definitions of whether a person is right or wrong, rather than the doctrines of Jesus Christ or the words of Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is the problem. We must understand this as a foundation as we deal with these issues. I'm starting this way to kind of open our minds to understand why I have taken a stance a little more skeptical about the established Christianity than some people would have thought that I would, okay? So this is the reason. So, in that light, can you be in the middle? Okay, that's a question that I'm asking this morning, okay? And I dealt a little with that in the book, The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth. Of course, you can go and buy your copy and you read it, okay? I talked about the balance of theology. And of course, a lot of you will say that of course, Christianity looks like a balance, but it's not always a balance, okay? God has his own position. He is the author of everything, and so you cannot describe him as a balance. But it's so sometimes looks as if we always lie either in the extreme left or in the extreme right, and there's always a balance of theology. And especially when you look at it from the point of view of Pentecostalism, evangelicalism, and Sabbatarian points of view, there's always a balance of theology there. Mostly we human beings want God to side with us, and so we tend to take extremes. So it is true that there is a balance of theology. So read the book The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth, okay? But now talking about this balance in terms of the end time events is another thing, okay? Having a Christian theology is one thing. Understanding the end time theology within Christian theology itself is another thing. And this has really marked some of the problems of Christianity over the ages, and marked also the problems when it came to Armstrongism, as some people describe it, or Sabbatarianism, that tended to emphasize apocalyptic theology or end time theology too much. And this is one of the first things that Descartes Sr., who took over from Armstrong, tried to correct, okay? The overemphasis on apocalyptic theology is not advisable. Why? For the very reason of the fact that the Bible itself is cryptic. The revelation of these events in the Bible is cryptic. Okay, it is allegorical, it is, some of it is even hidden, deliberately hidden. So it is not advised to base your church theology on that. Now, I won't go deep into that. I will talk about that maybe another time. But this is one of the reasons, okay? So, is it advisable for you as a person to not take any side? Because definitely the 666 will base their theology on on different sides. People will create their doctrines. Churches will create their doctrines. Religions will create their doctrines. Like I've talked about the Islam Christian extremes, and then the atheists are another extreme. Okay, so how can you take, given the fact that even Christianity is negatively affected by the activities of the Antichrist in a way that it is not really able to respond, has not been responding the way it should? How should you react to this? Can you have a balance of theology too? Well, it is very difficult in this very case. And this is the reason. Because it is the only thing that is left, that God is left with in his arsenal, in his actions. He is the final arbiter of this very event. Like Jesus himself in the Gospel said, nobody knows the time nor the day, okay? And so because of that, if Jesus himself, the Son of God, does not know the time or the day, you wouldn't expect anybody to do. So it is strange that many of us Christians tend to ignore that very passage, and we go and we dwell a lot on trying to forecast or prophesy on those dates and times. Okay, so it is advisable not to. Okay, not to, and not to even try to speculate on who that Antichrist is. Okay, don't even try to do that, because it is a trap. Okay, and the reason it is a trap is very important also, which I mentioned in the last video, that you are always in danger of being part of the Antichrist. Every human being on the face of the earth. Okay, so this is the problem. And when we realize this, we will try not to get involved in those speculations, and we will focus more on our daily lives. Okay, yes, it is good to Know what is happening in the world. Very important. It's part of it. That is what makes you conscientious, makes you responsible. In fact, some of the problems of the Christian church is that a lot of people don't really know what is happening in the world. They want to focus on these apocalyptic things, but in the process of that, I don't know how it happens. It will be another time to talk about that. But they ignore, still ignore those important events. Maybe because of what the whole system of the 666 is involved in doing. And what does it do? It beats us so hard. It makes it so difficult to make a living. It makes it so difficult just to survive from day to day, to maintain your marriage, to maintain your family, that you're so focused doing that, and you forget some of the things that you should also concentrate on. And this is the problem. So, yes, focus on understanding the end times. Focus on understanding politics. Focus on understanding how economic issues are handled. But do that not with greed of being the world's richest man or being one of those who will not suffer like many Christians are involved in, but with Christ in your mind. Okay, what is the will of God? What is the will of Christ? And when you put the will of God first, you will end up being in the know. Just like God said about Abraham. How can I do what I want to do without talking to my friend Abraham? This is what he will do with you too, because you are concerned about his will, his purpose. So he will speak it to you. Before he does it, he will come to you and say, I want to do this. Be careful. So this is just a thing. It is just a very simple thing. And we talk about it every time in church, but we hardly really understand it or are able to implement it. Okay, so this is the problem. So yes, it is possible to be watchful. It's not about sides. It's about being watchful and being true to the faith that you practice. We will still see more of this after this short break.
Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with 2 insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth and The 3, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.
So yes, it is important to be cautious. Okay, it's important to be cautious. Don't jump into issues too emotionally. Okay, study. It's important to be aware, educated about the issues at stake. Don't ignore education because you think education is evil. Or that science, okay, because you think science is evil. Be cautious. It is part of what will inform you and give you the tools that you need to challenge the powers of your time. And these powers are often tools of the Antichrist, as we read in Revelations 12 and 13. Okay? So you have to know what they are doing, understand where they get their power from, so that you can be ready. Okay, this is very important, and this is why Christ instructed the church to occupy themselves before he comes. Okay, to occupy themselves, not to just stay away from the public eye, but to occupy themselves. Okay, but being cautious and being true to your faith, very important. Okay. Because for one reason you don't know what God is going to use to help you. It happened during the 3rd century. God used the the persecution was so terrible that God had to use the emperor of the Roman Empire to stop that persecution. Okay, and so you don't know what God will use, who God will use, and that's not the first time. He did it to the Israelites, where he used Cyrus to save them. Okay, to return them to the promised land. So God has his own plans, and if you trust too much in your own plans, you will mess it up. Okay, so this is what happens. Okay, and we need to, in looking at this, look at another popular explanation of what we read in chapter 13 about the second and the third beasts. Okay, and I've read one or two commentators on this who have also shared the same view. I think 2 books. I'm going to share them maybe in the next podcast. But as I was reading it, it came to me, and I couldn't really remember who said that. Was it the Cosmic Drama? Maybe also my dad must have written that also in his book. So there is this view, and probably also Armstrong. Yes, there's this view that, of course, the third beast, the false prophet, is going to make the image of the second beast to come to life. Okay, and how does he do that? Okay, now partly, of course, the beast whose head was killed, who had an injury, on his head, but came back to life, is the Roman Empire. Some people believe that. And of course, it came back to life under the New World Order, the democracies and West in the West and all that. Okay, but it is given a life. It is the image is made to come to life. And how does the image made? And it's simple: the media. Okay, the invention of television. Okay, since the invention of television, television has become a very powerful tool. Of propaganda for the world governments. Okay, now if you look at this thing too far, as if, like I have always said, as if a guy is going to come with horns, a red skin, and big teeth and a tail, and he's going to be the Antichrist, you're going to get it wrong. Okay, this is just talking about everyday governments. The Roman government at the time Jesus was alive represented the Antichrist at that time. Okay, sometimes God took over that system and changed it, as he did with Constantine, of course, but it is always that tool that Satan uses to take over. It's the same tool that he used in time of Daniel. When Daniel was praying for the release of the children of Israel, the prince of Persia, attacked his prayer, delayed his prayer. So it's the same thing. He sits on the leadership of that time, to usurp the government and, to perpetrate the evil that he wants to do. He wants to perpetrate. Okay, so this is the thing, and this is what is explained in the Revelation chapter 13. Okay, the image of the beast using the media will be used to speak. This is what the prophet the Apostle John was seeing, and he didn't know how to explain it, of course. Some people believe that. He saw modern television, and this is that the image of the beast was going to be used to pour out propaganda. A lot of propaganda out there to deceive the people, and to make them subservient to this. Now, if you look at that on its own, this interpretation is notable in one or two places. But as I was thinking of it, I also believe that AI may also play a very important role in this, in our time. It's just moving in that direction. The most popular AI now is this image recreation. And it's going to get a lot of people so distracted, so consumed in it, and they're going to use it a lot to steal people's identity, to tell people things that are not true, to just spread some propaganda that people are going to believe, and they're going to take so much of their time using these technologies that they're going to forget God. Now, if this is true, Does that mean that technology is bad? This is one of the reasons that, of course, in the time of Armstrong, people believe that technology, is going to be is part of the 666. But if you remember Armstrong's method, what was Armstrong's method? Armstrong used the same technology instead, to now speak the word of God, to preach the word of God and counter it. Of course, the same method people like Billy Graham used, and that was very, very instrumental, in that time. The problem with us is that we believe that once the events come to life, then Jesus will come, and when he doesn't come, it becomes a problem. But the view that we are beginning to have, I am one of those who propagates this view, and I believe that a lot of people are doing so. Strangely enough, some of the secularist people in Hollywood are also doing that, in Hellboy, and they are saying that the Antichrist will turn against his leader, the person who is sending him. As you see what Hellboy did at the end, the recent Hellboy film. He turns, in fact, the whole Hellboy thing is about that. He turns and he kills the witch instead of taking her side. So this is the view that is coming. It is possible, that at the end God will do that. Of course, he has done it before. He has done it in Cyrus. He has done it in Constantine. So these are the things that we always look at, and we are saying that it is possible. And that is why we have begun to support the space race instead of being skeptical. Because there's a lot of support in the Bible for it. And so we are saying, maybe God will use, because God is the author of creation. He owns everything. Evil is just a negation of the good. So he can easily turn it on itself. So he might still use it for his own benefit. And so this is the issue. So that is one popular explanation of the second and the third beast. The advent of television as a technology, and as it continues to grow, it takes place in the computer, also takes another shape in AI itself. And it's going to be a very powerful tool. Of course, many people, even the people creating these technologies, are saying they are afraid of it, And it may be the tool that is going to bring in the full force the power of the Antichrist, So that is a discovery, isn't it, Many of us Christians, I want to say this, we love the simple things. We love the things that are just straightforward. It should be like this and not like that. That is all, But many things in this world are not like that, You have to really be disciplined, and you have to study the Bible, and it's very important. It's very important. You have to take your time to be that student of God, To show yourself to be approved, a workman, ably dividing the word of truth, as it is said in the book of Timothy. You have to spend your time studying the word of God. If you don't, you're going to be involved in religion, and you're going to take part in the work of the Antichrist. It has happened before, still happening, and this is what we're experiencing in our time now. And in that way, I want to talk about this little problem that we're having, And it's about the global south as against the global north, or some people might want to call it the west, as against the rest, Why does it seem that the global south or the rest seem to be the more religious, and yet seem to always end up on the, let's say, not so right side? According to, me at least, Don't get me wrong. Even as I speak, I see a lot of the negatives of the global north and the west. And it looks as if, yes, the Antichrist, as many of the prophets and the apostles of our time have said, is going to come from the global north or the west. But, somehow, like you see, the paradigm is changing. Okay, the paradigm is changing. And the reason is just one. Because God is not interested in the work of Jesus Christ. He has shown that he is not interested in one tribe, one race. He's interested in the entirety of humanity. And for that reason, you find Israel, his chosen people of the Old Testament, are always in the global north. Okay, they always side with the global north, with the west. So he has created this very delicately to make sure that no one tribe and no one people can now be alienated and eliminated and say, okay, these are the wicked people. Okay, the same thing happened during the Nazi problem during the Second World War. Okay, it was the North against itself. Okay, Hitler wanted to eliminate the Jews for whatsoever reason, and many people believe that it's because he was also what do you call it, demonized. Okay, he was a demon had taken control of his body and was using him, of course the Antichrist himself, to do that. Okay, so this is just the thing. So this has happened before in history, and it's going to happen again, and that is why we need to be careful. So many people have tended to take the side of the global south because we believe the global south is religious, and they're going to be the ones to push Christianity forward. They're going to be the ones, to avoid the power of the Antichrist. But it's not happening that way. Things are not really moving the way we thought it would be. And why is this? And it is because of what God himself has said in the book of Ezekiel. Okay? In the book of Ezekiel. And when you look at it very carefully, and other books of the Bible, you discover, and in the book of Genesis, we call Genesis chapter 6 up to chapter 11, okay? And which other scripture we look at, okay? We have tended to actually emphasize this Revelations 13 when it talks the interpretation that, of course, technology is going to be part of what will bring the Antichrist, will strengthen or empower the Antichrist. And we've forgotten these other parts, okay, where God uses technology instead for the benefit of the church. Okay, and so we have this problem. It's either left or right. It's nothing in the middle. It's nothing out of the whole picture, and we are just, there. That is how we human beings are. But this is the problem. The South has often just believed that Christianity or religion or Islam is going to be the solution, and it will be between Islam and Christianity, but it has forgotten the other side of the story. Okay, and in fact, religion is often used as a tool of the Antichrist. In fact, the most popular interpretation of the third beast is that it is called mystery religion. It's going to be the false prophet. Okay, a clergy, okay, somebody who proclaims to be the prophet of God, okay, but is not. Okay, so this is the thing. This is what is happening to the global south as it is, and it tends to always be at the receiving end of events. And I'm doing this especially to help you not to be tied to any expectations that we are the good guys. Okay, Africa and the rest of the global south are the good guys, while the West are the bad guys. No, it never ends like that. Okay, and this is the problem. That is exactly what happened, okay, to Cain. That is exactly what happened to Esau. That's exactly what happened to Judas. Immediately you begin to think that you are the chosen one and that God should hate and reject the other guy, you've lost it. Okay, and that is the purpose of the coming of Jesus Christ. You have just lost it and you are not going to get it. And it's the same thing, it applies to the West also. Like I tried to point out in the last video, okay? Once they begin to say, okay, we are the West, we are the ones that have been used to bring these great things, they begin to lose it immediately. everything begins to go downhill. So this is the problem. You don't do that with God. You don't do that with Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is the problem, and we must really understand it. Okay, the overemphasis on the global south on mystics rather than a holistic view, to round up on that, okay, of life, is what is causing the problem. I have continuously pointed that out. Okay, God is not a God of confusion. He doesn't create a world, a physical world, and say that the physical world is evil. No, there's a purpose for it, and we must return to understanding that purpose. Okay, so well, let's continue. Okay, what is the role of power and the role of God? Okay, and one very important point, the role of longevity. Now we're talking about the 666, and you can't talk about the 666 without mentioning the person who creates the 666. And who creates the 666 is the dragon, the first 6, Satan himself. Okay, he is described as a spiritual being. Okay, one of the sons of God who lost his position in the presence of God, and now comes down and deceives human beings and takes over earthly power and leads human beings to create a human government, okay, stealing that position, of course, from Adam, who is the son of God, also, the first human being, okay, and now becoming, the most powerful being on earth. And so he creates that, okay. So, because he is the most powerful being on the face of the earth, of course, you have to go through him to do anything of substance. And that is why in Revelations 12, we see him challenging the birth of Jesus Christ, trying to destroy Jesus Christ at birth, and trying to destroy Jesus Christ even during his ministry. Of course, he partly does that by leading the people to crucify Christ, but in doing that, he is also defeated, okay? And that is the whole story, even within those 2 chapters. The whole gospel is also narrated there. But after Jesus Christ escapes on the wings of angels, he returns to earth, and that is when he now creates that second beast, the world governments, to make sure that Jesus does not, and his message does not take root on the earth. Okay, so he does that and creates also that third beast that enforces that rule. Okay, so he is powerful, and you don't want to get on the bad side of a powerful ruler, and that is why he's so powerful on earth. Okay, he determines whether you make it in life. He determines whether you get any money. Okay, whether you can provide for your family. Okay, and that is why he was able to tempt Jesus Christ, ask and say, if you bow to me, I will give you the whole world. That is what he is still doing. He does it to every man, every head of his home, every woman, okay, who's also a co-head of the home. Okay, he tempts her, say, if you bow to me, I will give you the whole world. Okay, and that's what he does. Okay, and so he creates this system, which many believe, within Christians, believe that the D-Way system has submitted itself to that. Okay, and is being used to create that. Okay, the pyramidal D-Way system. Okay, to create that system. That is why democracy is very powerful, because democracy kind of counterbalances the D-Way system. No one guy is always at the top. Okay, somebody else can challenge what the top guy is saying peacefully, okay, through dialogue. Yes, so this is why democracy is a Christian system, capitalism is a Christian system, okay? So this is the truth of it. So we need to understand this, okay? So power is very important, and that is how God counterbalances the power of the 666, and counterbalances the power of Satan in this. Okay, that is why we always have this dialogue within power. But these guys are winning, and that's what we always say. These guys are winning. So how do we explain the intervention of God in this? And it's always assumed that number aside, strength aside, God will always intervene. This is another topic on its own. I'm not going to spend so much time on this because it's going to really elongate this video, and I don't want it to be like that. So we'll probably dedicate the next episode to this, or other episodes, if I can get enough material to talk about it, okay? And what I've discovered finally on this very subtopic is that the power he uses against us is the fact that we don't live very long, okay? Every generation comes and it has its own experiences, and that generation dies out and the next generation takes over. And if only the elders could tell the children, oh, I've seen this before, don't do it, okay? Or don't do that, okay? We would know, okay? But there's nobody. Often the elders die out. And often before they die, they submit to Satan's 666 government, okay? Just for the sake of providing for their families, okay? So they submit, and of course they are sworn to secrecy. Don't say it, okay? That's why this predominance of this silence regime. Anytime you see the 666 taking over, the silence regime comes in, okay? You don't talk about this. In the first century, like, you don't speak the gospel. In fact, before that, don't pray, okay? During the time of Daniel, time of Ruth, Esther, sorry, you don't pray, okay? And we have that going on right now also. Prayer is an issue, it's under attack, okay? So this is the issue you need to understand, okay? So longevity is important. Christian leaders need to live long to say, tell their children and their grandchildren, look, I've seen this before, don't repeat that mistake. Okay, don't repeat that mistake. Okay, but what we see in the time now is, necromancy is being used to kill off the elders. Okay, kill off those. First, they begin killing them economically, then maybe physically. Okay, so that nobody can tell the children, don't do this, don't do that. This thing will hurt you, will hurt the future. Okay, so this is the problem. We need to take this very important. Okay, so that is why I'm always opposing the have children mantra as against the longevity debate. Okay, it's good to have children, it's beautiful. Okay, if you can teach them, yes, if you can provide for them and if you can teach them. Okay, so let's not forget that.
Discover a transformative journey into the kingdom of heaven. Following the initial publication, the author dives deeper with 2 insightful follow-up books. Ever felt disconnected from God even in worship? Explore how God's unconventional ways can transform your life. How can you align with divine plans, avoiding distractions? Find answers in The Kingdom of Heaven on Earth and The 3, Illuminating Christian Truths and Prophetic Practices. Unlock profound insights guiding you toward a deeper connection with God. Don't miss out. Dive into this enlightening exploration today. Click the link on the caption to get your copy.
So finally, we're going to be looking at a few topics in quick succession, okay? Necromancy, I kept on talking about necromancy, especially in the fight against longevity. In fact, we are seeing it so much here right now in Nigeria. I mean, it's crazy, okay? Poverty is on the increase while, okay, the rich are becoming richer, okay? And I believe the US too is experiencing the same thing. Tucker Carlson, I was just listening to Tucker Carlson, just talking about the decline in the US society over the past few decades, okay? And the rising crime and all that. Okay, this accompanies necromancy, okay? And it creates this shortening of lifespan so that the elders cannot instruct the children and the children are left on their own and they keep on repeating the same mistakes. So this is the problem, okay? So how do we fight, okay, against necromancy, okay? And vis-a-vis this geocosmic entanglement. And one thing I have discovered is what I call geocosmic entanglement. Now, of course, cosmic entanglement is a theory in physics. You know about that. I'm not going to take time to explain it. Go to my other videos or go and listen to deGrasse Tyson about that, physicist Fernando Fagin. They know more about that. And of course, I've talked about that in the book of Ezekiel also. You read my book, Foundations of Conceptuality, the second edition of that coming out, or the second volume of that, okay, to know more about entanglement, okay. But there is the presence of what we call the geocosmic entanglement. In that, if there is this cartoon, I've forgotten the name of the cartoon. This group of little guys, and they are in community, okay, and they do everything together. And there's something they call the unimind, okay, the unimind. They gather around it and they hold hands and they're like at one, and everything they do is with the same mind because they are connected. Okay, yeah. So these guys, like, they do everything in sync, okay, and because this unimind kind of connects them and he tells them everything they want to do, and so they don't work out of sync with this unimind. And so many people believe that this is what we should be doing, okay, because that is how necromancy really works, okay. There is no privacy, there is everybody's linked to everybody in that sense, and they are so astounded by this power it has. But of course, many of them come into it without knowing the weaknesses, okay, of the system, and because of that same problem, lack of experience, there are no elders to tell them this. And some of the elders did not experience it. Of course, they experienced this form of necromancy in small communities, and it was effective, okay. But that is why when you look at how it works, any country that begins to practice it, of course, there's this demarcation. Okay, every community is on its own, and there's instability within the country. I believe that is why Nigeria was ruled by the military for so long, because they wanted to avoid that. And with the return of democracy, of course, we see those things happening. I've talked a lot about that. You can go back to those videos, talk about how Nigeria developed and why we're going through the things we're going through now, to know about that. So the summary of it is that necromancy creates a socialist society where the rich become very rich and the poor become very poor, okay. And of course there is instability within the system, and it works very badly, especially in very large populations, okay. And so this is the issue, okay. And necromancy is the most powerful tool in the coming of the Antichrist, in the coming of the 666. And so we must fight against it. We must ignore the power of geocosmic entanglement. Okay, it's very powerful, but not really for the sake of human government. Okay, it does not work. Okay, so let us be very, very clear about that. Okay, so one thing we want to talk about before we round up is why is there so much delay and outbreak of war all of a sudden, okay? Right from the time 2010, okay, right to this point, okay, there's been so much turmoil, and some of that turmoil was because some people were expecting that the end will soon come, and that is why some went back to necromancy, unfortunately, okay. And then when they shouldn't have, longevity would have helped them. Their parents would have told them that we've tried this thing before. But the truth is that has anybody really tried it on a global scale? You have to be a very ardent student of history to know that it has been tried before, okay? And of course it will always fail, okay? And this is what it is, okay? And some of these things are related to what happened during the Second World War. And what happened was that, of course, Hitler suddenly discovered that the Aryan race or the white race was ahead, okay, technologically, culturally, from the global south, okay. And of course, in his myopic thinking, he felt, okay, why not emphasize that, okay. And the person he would look at to be the cause of to the detriment of the global north were the Jews, because the Jews are at the center of civilization. Okay, they were not initially, but because of the move of God within them, they became the center of civilization. You know, the Jews are a mixture, okay, between black and white. You know, essentially who they are, and of course they stand as that bind for all civilization. Of course, they don't. Sometimes they themselves don't know it, but they are. Okay, and he felt they were the enemy of Western civilization, and he wanted to destroy them. Okay, and of course, you know how that ended, and that has been the politics that has determined a lot of things right from that time for about 7 decades now till today. Of course, the Western allies, positively under the influence of Christianity, of course, suppressed that move, suppressed Hitler. Okay, but it is coming back out right now because of the exhaustion. I continue mentioning this. I believe it's this British journalist that brought up this issue of exhaustion. Okay, I think Monroe, what was that his name? Oh, that's bad. Why is the name escaping me now? Okay, he talked about exhaustion. Europe is exhausted. Of course, it is not. I didn't mention. I've been talking about what I mentioned because it was obvious. Okay, Western civilization has done so much, and they're still doing so much. Accepting immigrants. You know, they've spent so much time, and you know all that. You know that they are trying to do something. They're trying to correct mistakes of the past. They're trying to move civilization forward. Before Western civilization became what it is, it was within the context of war, and then the Second World War and the Nazi War was part of that. And so it is all in the effort of actualizing the purpose of Western civilization itself, the purpose of the Christian mission. Okay, and they are sort of exhausted. Okay, and that is the issue. So this exhaustion is bringing back the Nazi ideology. Okay, what if we just listen to Hitler? What if he was right? You know, we are humans and we always say that. What ifs? And this is what is causing all this, okay? So this is what is causing the delay right now. Because nobody knows what will happen, okay? And the theology, the Jewish theology, of course, and positively the Jews always side with the West. Of course, they may not be part of this problem again, but it is still an issue, okay? Global North versus global South. And right now we're at the precipice of a world war, a possible world war that may, you know, lie in these borders. And that is what we should try to avoid. And for me, it is going to result in the confirmation of the prophecy that the West is going to form the main bloc of the Antichrist. Okay? But, of course, they've been struggling with this for the past decade or so. Trump himself is in government, and in fact, he's facing it like this. Okay, you know, you can see the difference that he's not what he was in his first tenure, because he now is seeing things in a better perspective, and he doesn't know what to do. Okay, and he's going to take sides at the end of the day, and it's going to matter. Okay, so this is what it is. Okay, this is why the delay right now. The delay is humanity is trying to decide whether to go left or to go right. Okay, should the Third World War take place? Okay, should the Antichrist, should leaders of the West take sides with the Antichrist, or should they continue with the agenda of Christ? Okay, so this is what is at stake right now, and we need to understand this to be able to survive what is coming. So I'm going to round up now, but before I round up, I'm going to say this. Why is the West so confused right now? The reason is because of sects, cults, and denominations. And these have not helped us. I started by saying that, okay? The separation between the Orthodox Christianity in the East and Catholicism in the West during the rise of Islam did not help us, okay? It was a racial thing, and in my studies again it was a racial thing. I discovered it was a racial thing, okay? It didn't really help, okay? And what it created was denominations that based the identity of their denominations on tribal foundations. And that is why they are often trying to send people out instead of bringing people in, okay? And how do they send people out? By espousing doctrines that are from the foundation of their tribe rather than on Christ, okay? So this is the problem, okay? So segregationalism, okay, that some people cannot be Christians no matter how they try, is what is causing this problem. And that is why we have people right now heading the Western world that really have a shaky foundation in Christ, okay? And you know, if they try to come closer to Christ, they end up on one extreme, fighting Islam. And this is what is happening, okay? That's why Trump is being encouraged to fight Islam in Iran, okay? Because, of course, the people moving him believe that Islam is the Antichrist. Okay, so those are the views, okay? So that is why we have this problem, okay, right now. And if the West remembers its heritage, it will refuse to follow that idealistic point of view, okay? Being watchful, again, I must say, being watchful, because the Antichrist can be anywhere, okay? I'm not discounting that. But being careful not to accommodate that we against them mentality, because it never works, it never creates any good thing. Remember the Second World War. I am David reaching K for you in Searching the Heart.